Welcome back to another episode. My name is Jessica.
I'm Layne Dealing-Turlant. This is Very Good Enough, a podcast from Very Good Mothers Club.
And we are here in Layne's house on a kind of gray, rainy Thursday in Los Angeles, talking very casually about marriages, long-term relationships that are good but not great. And this was prompted, I think, by this question that someone posed of like, what do you do when your husband is in lazy husband mode? And and then I don't know, we just started talking. It's been like a month of us sort of reflecting on
or at least just saying the phrase lazy husband mode and laughing because it's so funny.
It's funny. And it's also funny that there was like a nod, like collectively people are that like
lazy husband mode. Sure. Yeah. Which I just want to, I guess at the start, say that I'm against such gendered statements.
Right.
And I think that we've actually like done a lot of damage, not only to men, but to like our own overall structures by these like weird stereotypes of like, dumb dad in commercial doesn't know how to use a sponge. He didn't take the plastic off. Silly dad. You know, just this thing of like, well, men are too stupid to help babysit.
Totally.
Even the idea that men babysit rather than parent.
Yes.
Because they're parents.
I did notice actually, I don't know if you've ever watched Peppa Pig. I really enjoy Peppa Pig. But they do always make the daddy pig look kind of like a dummy. And I mean, on the one side, I celebrate that the women are doing all of these cool things in it. If you watch, the mommy pig is like everything. And like the mom sheep, it's been a while. She's like everything. She flies a helicopter. They're always rescuing daddy pig from like his own demise. But I did think, and I was raised by lesbian moms and quite feminist. I'm like, oh, buddy. I mean, maybe I have a husband who's very competent and a son who is 3, but I think he's amazing. He's very competent. And while I know they're both hilarious and we could probably make cartoons out of the funny things they do, they're smart fellas, you know?
Yeah. When we pose them this way, we both demean them and also give them a pass. You know?
Yeah.
There's this strange thing of like, well, dad couldn't possibly change diapers.
Right.
And those were like very overt messages in media in like the 40s and 50s. You know, right at the beginning of media.
Right.
Since the beginning.
Yeah. And you definitely see it in, I mean, I'm not speaking specifically about my dad, thinking more just like in generational lines that would have been kind of the acknowledged way. It's like they don't have anything to do with all of this stuff.
Right. And then when they do anything, they're like overly praised.
Right.
Super praised. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. Or they feel like they should get like a huge pat on the back for participating in like the basic care of where they live and basic parenting.
Yes.
The children that they helped make.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
It is interesting. Yeah. There's so many places to go with this idea of like lazy husband mode. Yeah. Because
so I think the context for this one is husband, dad, guy is working parent. That's how I've seen this play out anyway. Is working parent, and so they are no longer working in the evening time perhaps or on the weekend, and so they are decompressing. Fair. No judgments made. Totally fair. But there's an assumption that like, that's fine because they're working. And I'm not even speaking specifically about this person who posed the question because I know her, but just in general, the way I see this happen in the community. And then there's a weird, awkward tension type thing because wife doesn't really know how to engage him, or sometimes you hear it like when it's time for us to connect, he's on his phone, or like he doesn't engage with the child because he's resting because he worked, and like it makes sense, he provides for us, blah blah. Interestingly, roles reversed. I'm actually in this stage of my life the working parent. And Sean is the stay-at-home parent, though he doesn't like that term because he never stays at home. But as the mom, there's not the same kind of assumed freedom that I'm just going to rest.
Right.
It's
that
like
you worked all day and now you're going to put your feet up while someone makes dinner.
Totally.
And
I see that with my friends who are working mothers, that they get home and it's very assumed that they're on now with the kids and they are on now throughout the night. So it's just interesting. It definitely is something gender specific that I don't really know. I'm just saying it so that we acknowledge that it does exist.
Yeah. And it gets that it's clear how that's a gender issue and it's
Sure.
kind of clear how that's a parenting issue, but really parenting and gender dynamics in your home come down to the agreements in your adult relationship.
Your marriage.
Yeah.
So it's a marriage issue.
Really more of like a marriage issue, right?
Yeah, totally.
That like you are operating on either an agreement that you came by unconsciously and then so no one feels like they consented to the circumstance, or it's an agreement that's outdated or was handed to you from the outside or simply doesn't work for you anymore.
Yep.
Maybe you thought it was going to be one way and it feels different in reality, or actually you just have changed your mind and need the agreement to be different.
Yeah.
And that's
It definitely helps if both adults in the relationship have experienced what it's like to be the full-time caregiver of your kids. Because part of why I would never just assume that I'm going to rest and just assume that Sean's not is because I know what it's like to be home taking care of the kids without the other adult there to support.
Right.
It's so exhausting and demanding.
Yes.
And so because of that, the assumption is we both need rest. And then the question is, hey, how do we both rest? What could that look like for us as a team? And it hasn't always been as simple. Like now it's much, much easier for Sean and I to figure out rhythms for life. But when the babies were fresh, we had never had some of these conversations before because we had never had kids before. We had never had one, and then we had never had two, and then we had never had three. So some of the bumps were just us basically living a long enough time to see what was working and what wasn't. Yeah. And then once you figure out what's not working, you have to figure out how to talk about what's not working without both tired parents feeling really kind of defeated or attacked or like, I'm trying my best here, or I'm not trying my best and I don't know why. You know? So then, I mean, my youngest is 2, so I'm that far into all of this. 3 kids, youngest is 2. Now we're at a point which is much, much more comfortable and much easier than when we were in the new baby stage, even though the new baby stage was really full of probably dopamine. Dopamine, is that the one that makes you just like happy and in love? We definitely felt happy, in love, overwhelmed, really tired. And then issues that arose in marriage were really confusing to talk about because we would have these conversations and it would be like we're missing each other and like we're both wishing we could assume the best of each other, but somehow the words are coming out as if we're assuming the worst of each other.
Yeah. Can we take a small pause to talk about exactly that thing?
Of course.
Where like you're in I don't have anything smart to say about this. This is just a thing of like, whoa. Yeah. When you're like in it with your person and you know how you feel and you want to say a thing that feels warm and loving or connected, like that you have the thing inside, and then somehow as it comes out, the words that wrap around it are so different from what you meant to say, and yet you have to stand behind them for no reason.
No, that's not good.
Even though they're
it gets
so different from what you meant.
And it gets emotional. And by that point, it's usually like too escalated to like come back and like what I meant. And even if you say what you meant, it's like, well,
it doesn't matter because you said the mean thing.
Yeah, that's so tricky. That was true before kids, but having kids adds more of that to it. And a lot of what's true about having kids has to do with the fact you've never done it. So like you end up encountering issues that even couples who have been together for a really long time, who like super are synergized and like know how to do life together, then they have a kid and they're like, what is going on? Yeah. And you just never could have known to talk about that thing because you never had the kid before. Mm-hmm. And then now you're doing things that you learned growing up, or you're doing the opposite of what you learned growing up. And then you're having to put words to why you're doing the thing that came instinctually that your person hates or doesn't get or doesn't understand.
Yeah, that's a really interesting marital change once you have kids, is that they're like, whatever that sort of like automatic underlying, just like observed and kind of unconscious thing that you saw, you click into that in your parenting, and now you're married to someone who's behaving differently. Then they don't seem like themselves. They now seem like someone else because they're in this new thing, and the first thing that you do in the new thing is I'm going to put on the suit of my father that I saw, or like I'm going to tie some apron strings around just to get aggressively gendered. But you just like it's so normal the first time before you realize what you're doing or have thought about how you want to do it to just like click into what you watched. But now like the ramifications of that as it trickles like back up into your marriage, that's where you get like, you are not the person I married, that weird statement.
Yeah. And adding to that, things like you might kind of miss your spouse, like pre having kids, you're probably together a lot more than you will be after having kids, or even when you're together with your kids, your energy is going towards this little one. And then when you do get time together without the little one, you're depleted. You might not be having sex as much or at all, depending on what stage of like physical, when did you have your baby? That affects everything. And so that can all be really confusing too. And then some people have expressed a sense of almost like jealousy around like, my husband loves my baby so much and so affectionately and compliments them so much. And I love it. I want them to be complimented so much, but I also would love to hear those words too.
Yeah.
And all of it gets muddled. And so then you're not in a place of like, well, I want this to end, this marriage. It's not like that, but it's also not great.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not even particularly good depending on the stage. And that can be really hard.
Yeah. Yeah. But stretches where it's not awful bad, but it's also like not super great, not like you remember or not like you hoped for. Like, that's to be expected in a thing that you've decided to do for your whole entire life.
Yeah.
Like if what we want out of these marriages is for them to last our whole entire lives, we have to be really, really realistic about what that means. Like that is a lot of effing days. Like it's so many days to be with someone. And I like my marriage and I think it's really fun and it's getting better over time, which is so special and cool. But the idea that it would only stay on that trajectory, that it would that the bar graph would always be curving up, and that there will never be a plateau, or that times won't feel strange or just dull.
Yeah.
Like it's just life, right? To be married to someone is to just do your life next to them. And we all expect life to go up and down and to curve and have really weird times and really boring times. But then we think that this relationship is going to be like a separate thing that's like all shiny all the time.
Yeah.
That would be, we're just setting ourselves up to be really surprised if we don't like sort of emotionally budget for there being times when it's just a little bit meh.
Yeah. And it is hard when you realize that the images of marriage around you are probably highlight or like really low light, right? Like can you believe this scandal? But if you're just glancing through social media, perhaps, because that's where often many of us go with just our like down moment, is we flip out our phone and we scroll somewhere. The photos people are posting are like really lovely. Somebody's with their person on a trip to wherever, and it's all so beautiful and so it looks so amazing. And because you're not in their story, the assumption for whatever reason is always that it's way better than it is. Once you start talking to these people and they get honest, marriage is marriage. Like there's always going to be challenges in different places or strains or places where dull. Like sometimes it's boring, and that's okay. But we just don't assume that about these flashy photos or videos that we're seeing of everyone. So we compare the highlights to our real life, which is stressful or tiring or boring or frustrating or whatever. And it can be really hard to make sense of it. And so then we think that this isn't what I expected. I need to go looking somewhere else or something. Can be confusing. Again, it's another one of those like mute everyone, you know, it's that idea of like, if you're getting confused, don't look at everyone else's and start looking at your own with an eye that's like, where could this shift for the better? Is there room for improvement here? Is lazy husband mode happening so frequently that we need to have a conversation about, hey babe, what do you need? And can I tell you what I need? And how could we create a life where we both get our needs met? What could that look like? And then if that is met with a lot of pushback, then maybe the next conversation is like, what do we think about each getting counseling separately, individually? Or what do we think about getting counseling together? The idea of each of you getting some sort of therapy or coaching or something is just the idea that healthy people make a healthy relationship, which I've said before from a friend who told me that. If you guys personally aren't feeling cared for, then it's going to be a lot harder to care for the relationship together.
Yeah. So tricky. But also something we just talked about in a previous episode was, it was like in light of your toddler being very upset or just uncomfortable, like it is okay to not feel okay sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's something that is so hard to remember as adults for lots of reasons. Either like maybe we had a parent who was really over attentive and every time we were upset, they were upset with us. And then everybody got really heightened and then needed to come on down. And it was like, oh, the baby is wooden. We fix it. Or we learned that our feelings really don't matter. And so now when we have an emotion, we're like, oh no. Something that I need is coming up and needs are bad. That's not allowed. Or whatever. Or even just the like general sort of like, you and I live in America where things tend to be relatively easy and relatively smooth. Yeah. Not across the board, but in terms of like quality of life. And we tend to get a little indulged about like, I want everything to function. I want it all to be quick. I want it all to be easy. I want it all to be whatever. Oh no, I don't like discomfort. Discomfort's not for me. But like being able to just in a very mature adult way say, I don't like how this feels right now. I'm going to just let that be. It's okay that I don't feel okay. It's okay that he's not okay. I don't have to go find out why he's not okay. I don't have to fix it for him. I don't have to ride the wave of his emotions. I don't need him to come over here because to know that I don't feel okay and come over here and fix it for me. Like sometimes it's just boring. Sometimes it's just uncomfortable, and that's okay. Yeah. All of your feelings are meant to be felt and none of them last forever. Yeah. So good. That's really true for everything and hard, but really, such a great point. Yeah. Yeah. And we tend to put a lot of pressure on our marriage, like for the relationship to meet a gazillion needs all at once. I think we've talked about it here before, like be our excitement, be our exhilaration, be our stability, be our provider, be our best friend, be our romance, be our partner, be our co-parent, be our source of identity. Tell me if I'm beautiful or am I not, like everything. And it can become in a sense where they're like a god to us. We look to them to determine things that people look to the divine for. That is so much pressure on a person and on a relationship. And that's where the need for friends comes in, the need for outsourcing these certain needs so that it's not this one person who is responsible for all of this stuff that one person can't give us. When things are a bit more balanced, then we might like them more. We might find out like, oh, they're actually really exceptional at being a husband. They weren't a great God, so that was too bad, or they weren't a great best friend in the sense that like, I don't know, like, the way you have like maybe a sisterly best friend. Even when we get married, we still need those people. We need the dynamic that we needed
before, it might look different.
The pressure of holding us up should be diffused throughout like a reasonably sized community, more than just husband, child.
Yes.
But also like on a universal and sort of like existential level, like all we have is ourselves, right? Like we get to make these people and bond with these people and live our lives with them, and it's very beautiful and exciting that we get to like have them as part of our life. But the only thing that we definitely and totally have is our own self. So if we don't have a relationship with ourself, if we don't know how to hear our own inner knowing and like nourish ourselves and be with ourselves, like we're not gonna have guidance, right? Like we can't be looking to just like this partner to be self-defining or this child to be self-defining. That will really skew those relationships. I mean, as it does friendships and other things as well. Like we have to be able to know who we are and really hold ourselves, which as codependents, tricky. Hey, tricky business.
Yeah.
Tricky business, the thing of differentiating yourself from the thing, the object of your desire and your affection.
Yeah.
And actually, could we maybe talk about conflict as people who have some codependent tendencies? Because the thing is, whether it's like lazy husband mode and whether that's real or what, like whatever the issue is, we have to be able to address the issue if we're ever going to make any shifts in our life.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I feel really scared about that.
I know it's not that easy. For some personalities, maybe it's easier. I don't know, but it's this codependency thing would be like we're so kind of connected to the person that we're with that we are trying to control them. That's not what we think we're doing as people who are prone towards codependent styles of life, which is pretty much everyone. We all kind of more or less everyone has this. It's like I can't bear to feel the feelings that will happen when Sean is upset with me or with anything. So I will do whatever I need to do to keep him from being upset because I can't handle those feelings that I will feel if he is feeling something other than good, which is an unfortunate style for doing life, right? Because really, we're all going to feel feelings all the time. And so I need to be able to like manage my own internal climate, like my weather. I can stay somewhat sunny even if he's raining. You know, I might feel for him like, oh, this was really hard, but I don't want to live my life in a way where I'm just trying to keep him from feeling anything that would be painful or weird, because actually I don't want to feel painful or weird things. And I'm so out of touch with myself that I'm only in touch with him. And so I feel like as a reflection of whatever he feels. So conflict happens. I mean, conflict happens all kinds of times. What I think is like productive conflict in my own experience is when I'm aware enough of what's going on in me to speak honestly about it. And then I'm secure enough in the moment that I'm willing to hear him be honest too, even if the things he's going to say might feel really crappy to me. It's like okay, I'm here. I'm not going to run from this. I'm not going to try and control you out of it. I am just going to face what comes. It's also helpful if you know yourself to an extent to know like, okay, in conflict, I will tend towards something. I personally tend towards sadness, but some people in my life tend towards anger. We feel all of these feelings, but there are some tendencies. If you can know things about yourself, you can even communicate them. Like, hey, in a big moment, I might cry or I might feel like I want to leave the room. All I'm really doing is like feeling so flooded with emotion that it's like hard for me to be here and do this. Or my sister, she would openly say this, is like she would be quick to feel anger. So then she kind of has to bring herself back to like, okay, wait, can I hear this? That stuff is helpful because you're in a lifelong relationship with this person. I think if you're marrying them, this is your person. You want to have some awareness of how you guys deal with conflict, and then be able to create a way of dealing with it that works for you. And the great thing is that conflict, it leads to something better than conflict. So like addressing the thing that's hard ultimately leads to a thing that's better. Even if you are in a stage where you're like, man, we just keep having the same conversations, which I've been there. I'm on my 14th year of marriage with Sean. We definitely have had months even where it's like, whoa, anytime we talk about this one thing, it does not feel productive. I'll say this. I think it is most helpful, and Sean and I agreed within our marriage, so this has been like a forever thing. We don't like attack each other personally. There is not name calling. There is not like, you are so this. We both agree that that's not a style of conflict that would be helpful to us. And I would encourage you to not fight like that. It's not helpful. This is your person. This is your lifelong one. Right. So that's, I guess, because I was going to say unproductive conflict. There's unproductive conflict in the sense like we're doing our best and it's not leading to an outcome yet. That feels unproductive, but it's actually still probably productive in the long run because you're trying to figure this out and you're being honest with each other about what's going on. Really unproductive is if you're just mean to each other. Yep, we got another fight. He just tore me apart. I hear this from you guys. Like, yep, my husband just said basically all these mean things to me. I think he's mad about this one thing, but he thinks he's mad about the way I grocery shopped today. Right. That is more unproductive. It's not actually addressing. That's my opinion. Do you see what I'm saying? Yeah,
absolutely.
But conflict in itself, if you live in such a way where you avoid conflict all the time, which I would definitely try to do. Sean and I would definitely, our style would be like, if we just ignore it for as long as possible, maybe it'll go away. That doesn't actually help us. So honest conversations are part of it. And sometimes those are conflicting conversations. What do you think?
Yes. I think yes.
Yeah.
Conor and I got married super quickly.
Yeah.
We had like known each other for a while, but then when we got together, we got married really, really rapidly. So we were in this like very high stakes relationship at 24 and 25 that was like new. It was like a very baby tiny relationship that was like, now we just like ramped up the stakes as much as you possibly could. Yeah. And we sometimes talk about it as mutually assured destruction, like the Cold War, where like everyone has nuclear weapons. So it's like, well, if you explode me, I explode you, and that's in. And to me, I'm like, oh, what could be sexier? Oh my gosh. Yeah. But I'm into the intensity. But at the beginning, each of us both tends towards sadness. Okay. In the upset way. If there's gonna be anger, it's more me. Like I get a little more fiery. Sure. Where Conor will get a little more like, oh, why is this feels scary, and he'll like shrink away from me a little bit. Okay. But it all manifests as crying. Everyone's crying. Sure. Yeah. Even now, where I feel like we do a pretty good job with fights and conflict, they're still a little weepy. But I would do this thing where it would be like, oh no, oh no, oh no. If I bring this thing up that's important to me, Conor will be sad, and then I will be sad, and then our whole weekend will be tanked. Yes. We'll be sad for the whole weekend. And so if I say these things, then I will have ruined the weekend. Yeah. And weekends were feeling very precious in my like newlywed, I'm so obsessed with this person, nuclear weapon state. So it was like my choice felt like I could say the thing that's obviously important and going to help, but the cost of it for me is this entire weekend where I could just swallow it and snuggle. Yeah. And there was a lot of choosing to snuggle instead of choosing those things. And that was reasonable. So scary. I felt so scared to ever say things, and there still are some areas that we get into it, and then I'm like, I'm just never going to talk about that again. My brain's like, well, I'll put that in the jar of things I'll never say.
I've had that too.
It's so real. There's a whole wall of jars. They're mostly empty now, but that's been the value, I think, of time and age. Age has really helped. And I say that to be encouraging if you're young and listening. But actually just being alive longer and being like, oh, I didn't die that time either.
Totally.
The thing happened and it happened again and I still didn't die. Like it can feel lethal.
Yes.
And I'm still someone who's like very carefully deciding when I'm going to bring something up because I know that it's going to
definitely
bring feelings and I don't fully believe that it's okay to not feel okay sometimes. I keep saying that to you guys, but obviously
we say
like
it
there's a part of me that
hard.
thinks it's not okay to not feel okay sometimes, that it should always be perfect. And it's been such a relief in my life over time and with like some help from like teachers and personal healing to like very manually and purposefully unhook myself from Conor's emotions. I used to be like latched on and be like, all right, I'm along for the ride, and be constantly like he's in the room next to us and I would be like sending my feelings through the wall to like scan him and see how he's feeling in the room where I'm not even, and we're the only ones here. So I'm like, if there are any feelings of life, I know who it belongs to. Constantly scanning because I don't want to feel the feeling of him not being okay. And for a long time I thought that I was obsessed with him. And I did not know that I was super obsessed with myself and with my own feelings, and that I was managing him, like you said, in order to be okay, keep my own feelings okay, like really trying to control.
I really understand.
And like structure his life. Is he fed? I used to make all these beautiful foods. I was like exhausted from like making beautiful dinners every single night and just like trying to do all these things, not even things that were specific to him or that he wanted. I just was like trying to put all my output into making this other person feel okay so that I would feel okay.
I feel like anyone who's listening who has been there is nodding. And for the rest of you precious souls who've never been there, then well done you.
Yeah.
But I totally know
check if your person is doing that for you.
That's true. That's a great point. Yeah, you might be the one that the other person is bending over backwards for. Man, that is so right. I would say something that I've learned with time and age that I wonder if you can relate to is, it was actually articulated really well by my dad. So Dad, if you're listening, he said this just recently in an email to me. He said, he was talking about someone else, so nobody you guys even know about. And he said, I really had hoped that these people's marriage would have expanded to absorb their own mistakes so they could forgive each other and move forward. And I thought, whoa, that is a really cool picture of what I've been reflecting on lately, is that the longer you're with someone, if you're honest together, our relationships expand to absorb all that we are, good and bad. And unfortunately, there's a lot more bad than we realize. When we first go into it, we're so excited about the good, which makes sense. That's what actually propels you into a relationship where you would say, for life, really, for life? That's crazy. Like, we are on these dating apps, like, for today, for tomorrow, for you, like, we will be with all of these people. And then somehow we meet someone and we go, nobody else for life. Forever. That is so intense. And that means we know mostly everything good about them. And everything bad we know has been glossed over with our love and sex appeal. And it's beautiful. And I love it. And I lived that. And it was one of my favorite stages of my life, that falling in love season. But then time happens and you hurt each other and you hurt yourself, and you experience things that you never thought you would experience, and they experience things they never thought, and you make decisions you never thought you'd make, or it's just basically you become more and you grow together. And then the question is, does the marriage hold you anymore? Can it be enough for all that you guys are right now? And I think that that's really beautiful when you see people who have been together for so many years and they're fully in and they fully love each other and they fully know each other, and they're able to be wholly themselves, the good and the bad. Maybe I'm not explaining it so well. It's that thing of like, I know you and you know me, and we've hurt each other and we've forgiven each other. We haven't glossed over it. We haven't pretended none of this happened. We've actually been fully here. And we've allowed our marriage to be the shape that could hold both of us.
Yeah.
And I think that's really precious. And that's not a great feeling. The feeling of expanding, the feeling of like, oh, whoa, I never wanted to have to forgive you for this thing. I never wanted to experience the things I've experienced internally. I remember the period of my life where I was super severely depressed. That was a period where Sean was really happy, super happy, like living some dreams.
Yeah.
Dreams coming true. And what a weird feeling where I'm like, whoa, I never wanted to feel this low.
Yeah.
And I don't think you understand. I don't even really want you to understand because that would mean you'd have to come down from where you are. But I can't get there and you don't seem to see me here. Or he did. The thing is, he had never experienced what we were going through before. And I had never either in the context of marriage. And that's a really crazy thing to go through. I mean, there's so many details that I'm leaving out of this, but the idea is that a few years prior, I mean, that was around 7 years into marriage or 8 years into marriage or something, the stuff we were feeling, if you had told me that at 20, that we'd be experiencing some of the stuff at 28 that we were, I probably wouldn't have believed you. I wouldn't have even thought I could go there. It had to do with my faith, my job, my like understanding of who I was at that time. It was like, not us. Because I would never let that happen because I'm way more responsible than that. Do you know how how well I take care of myself? But the fact is we're all humans and we go through all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
And, I think like there are moments where your marriage starts to expand, where you have these conflicts and these hard conversations and you're like, can we still do this? Can we still choose each other? Can we still figure this one out? And in Sean's whole perspective, I can't remember if I told you guys this, but his idea of like our marriage is a book and we're on a hard page, don't throw away the book because of the page. That perspective is so important on the hard pages. When you're in it, you're like, oh, I don't know. And it looks like it'd be easier to be in a book with that other hot guy, you know? It's so much bigger than the moment you're in. And when you add kids to the equation, the whole picture changes because now it's about a story that includes a whole bunch of you. And like, it's a kind of zooming out and being like, what does this mean for us? What do these challenges mean for us? And not that I'm saying you should always stay together if you have kids, like no matter what you go through, you should always stay together. But I do think it gets bigger where you're like, well, it's not just about you and I now. Now it's about these kids and their childhoods and the story of their childhood. And what about when they have kids? Who do I want to be later? And like, can we hold on for like during these hard couple years, can we hold on for the potentially good couple years that follow? It becomes so much more complicated than just like, here we are now. Is this good? Yeah. Is it bad? No. You know, like whatever. And then you just make your decisions based on that.
Yeah.
Tricky.
I think this is what I think so far. My marriage is 6 years old.
Okay.
Which my marriage is 6.5 years old, which means that my relationship is 7 years old.
First grade. It's in second grade.
Yeah. And, that's little. One of the things that you're saying actually that I'm hearing from you too is like, no hiding. There just can't be any hiding.
Yeah.
Like that's what it means that you've chosen this level of intimacy is like the level of exposure is really, really, really high.
Yeah.
And if you're squirreling important things away into the shadows, those shadows are going to grow really dark. And it's too long. Ideally, your life is really long.
Yeah.
And so your marriage is really long. And it's too long of a time to be with someone if you're hiding.
That's true. Yeah, that's really true. It's a great point.
You know, like if something's not working for you now, that thing is not going to just get better for you. It's not just going to disappear. You're not just going to change your mind about it. Yeah. If you need something, that need is not just going to go away.
Yeah. You know what? It's like your physical health. You need your health, and the longer you ignore something that is wrong, the worse you will feel, the worse it will get to the point of physical death, right? In marriage, you need health, and health comes via honesty about things. someone really close to me is restoring a marriage after broken trust.
Wow.
And we've been talking a lot about the health of marriage is almost like platelets. Like your body needs platelets. Like if you get a paper cut, that's what's going to stop you from bleeding.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't have platelets, you bleed to death, even via paper cut. A marriage that doesn't have health anymore, little things make it bleed out. Little tiny dumb stuff becomes, we can't get through this.
Right.
But that you can like catch in an earlier stage. I also think you can come back from really dark things. I've seen it before. I've lived various versions of it. Nothing, I mean, what my friends are going through is maybe more intense, but they're giving me a lot of hope because they're choosing to pursue health after some intense stuff. But basically you need health in order to handle really small things, right? Tiny things. And so the longer we, because it's me too, are hiding or feeling like there's not room in the relationship to talk through the real stuff that goes on in us, then the more we're getting to a place where even a tiny thing will make you bleed out, where you go, I don't know, like he forgot again. He forgot whatever this thing is again. I'm done. Right. And someone looks at you like, wait, what?
Right. Well, it's like you tucked all that stuff in the shadows and now your shadows are huge and dark. And as soon as someone bumps you, this giant shadow comes up like, rah! Yes, because it's all the things everything. Now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so for these people who are in the midst of restoring health, it means both people are in therapy together. There's some form of therapy. There's honesty even within their closest circle to say, we need some extra support right now. Will you help us with our kids as we figure this thing out? Which is pretty beautiful to get to the point of like desperate vulnerability. Then everybody who loves you jumps in, which I was thinking, I think the idea when you get married is that the guests and the people standing up with you, like in the traditional picture of like, you have a bridal party, you have an audience there watching. The idea is that it's not just a show you're putting on. It's, hey team, we're saying yes to something that's pretty impossible. We're saying that we will be together for life. And anyone who's gone before us goes, wow, that's really hard. If they're honest. I don't know how we ended up in a world where like, it's just like, marriage for life, super easy.
Have fun.
Yeah.
Here's a toaster.
Yeah, right. And so the idea is that you have all these people who are like, okay, I'm watching you make this commitment and I'm here for you now, year after year, to help you live this commitment in whatever way that means, whether it means like celebrating your kids' birthdays with you, or it means like call us up late at night when you feel pretty betrayed by the other person's whatever. Like, we'll help you in whatever way we're invited. We're your people. But maybe culturally or society, we don't do it like that so much or something. It definitely, what Sean and I have talked about is, depending on your circles, there's not a lot of safety to talk about the real things that go on, the real struggles, because it becomes a like, oh, can you believe it? Can you believe what they did? Or can you believe what they said? Or what, like, I don't know what that is, but it's not safe.
Right.
So yeah, I think the safety within the marriage, but then a safety within a collective group of people who love you.
Yeah.
Because all marriages struggle.
Totally.
Everybody does. It's why there's a divorce rate as high as there is because it's
a
not
hard thing
easy.
to do.
Yeah. I don't know. These are just rambling thoughts.
Yeah, I love them. I think my only other rambling thought is at some point I learned how to stop feeling like Conor was on the opposite side of me. Like I don't know how or where this happened, but I was always like trying to make sure in some way we were on the opposite side of a room facing each other in my brain.
Okay.
And I was like trying to make sure that everything was really even between us and that like nobody was doing too much or too little or taking too much or keeping that really even. And then when he was saying things to me, I don't know, it's like just in my mind, I can see him now. I feel like he's next to me and I used to feel like he was across from me.
That's cool.
And that's really different. There's something really different about that, of like sitting next to one another, looking the same direction, being able to like pass things back and forth, as opposed to like you're over here and I'm over there and we're facing each other.
Yeah.
There's just like there's an intensity there that doesn't need to be there. And then it's very easy to make that person your opponent if they're facing you like that.
Do you anticipate in life that there will be times when he becomes across from you again? Or do you think it's more like you start across from each other and then as you get to know each other more, you become next to each other?
That's a really good question. I would say that maybe we, in a helpful way, like retook that position when I needed us to move to LA.
Okay.
I needed us to make a change in our life. I knew that it was going to be so good for him and so important, and I really needed it.
Whoa.
And so I really, really pushed for that.
Wow.
And he was not saying no to me, but it was not a thing that he wanted to do. So there was sort of this thing of us being like, how are we going to figure this out? Like together, like this is what's gonna happen here, because we're pretty amenable to one another pretty much all the time. And that was like a conflict that didn't force itself in. I was like, I'm gonna choose to be on the opposite side of an argument from you on purpose.
Yeah.
Because I want something.
Yeah. So is that it? Is it like if there's ever an argument where you have differing views, but you guys have arguments about different things. Does it feel more like you become on the opposite side of the room again until you come back next to each other? Or some of them feels like you're next to each other?
I think that's maybe the only time that I have felt that positioning again since the beginning.
Do you think it'll come up again when it comes to having kids?
Maybe. Okay. Maybe when we like are needing to change our lives.
Sure.
Somebody needs something and the other person is going to have to figure out how to come around.
Because I think like when we started the podcast at season 1 or episode 1 or episode 2 is when you talked about how in this current state you feel good about no kids and he is wanting kids or more on the side of wanting kids.
Yeah, it's a very open question.
Okay.
It remains
so
a very
at some
open
point.
question.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, that's definitely one that, I mean, yeah, that came up. We saw a therapist in the process of being like, I need us to move.
Whoa.
Like, we got to go.
That's so cool that you did that, because like I'm here now seeing what your life looks like because you moved, and it seems really good for Conor.
Really
like,
good.
You know,
He's really happy.
I mean, it's really good for you, but it seems like music wise, what a great place for him to be with his skills.
Yeah.
And so cool. Good for you for really pushing that.
Thank you. That's something that he, a few months in, did a really good job of acknowledging.
Oh,
like had a moment where he like called me to say like, I'm really happy that you made us do this.
Wow.
And that was very special.
But
that also is the kind of thing that keeps you on somebody's team more than ever.
Yes.
You know, is after being like, whoa, we're at odds again. Weird. We got to figure out how to like get back around to one another.
That's the thing, is then on the other side of conflict, there's better than before.
Yeah.
But you have to get there.
Yeah. You got to taste that a few times to know that it's okay, that it's better, that it's good, that it's worth it.
Yeah. Man, it's a journey.
It's a journey.
Yeah. Cool. Well, the good news is that in like 5 years, we'll have way more to say about this, because I was thinking like if I made a podcast about marriage 5 years ago or then 5 years before that, some of the things I've said, I would be like, oh, she is so cute.
Yeah, that's so nice
that
for
is
her that she
so
still thinks
sweet.
that.
Yeah, you know? So I think that this is the kind of conversation that's just going to evolve over time as we personally expand.
Yeah.
Not like physically, hopefully, we'll see. But just like, expand in our experiences and in people we know and in what we've gone through and seen.
Yeah.
Then we'll have more to say. And some of this may or may not be true. In 5 years, we may be like, oh, that was sweet.
Yeah.
How cute.
It'll be fun to have that record.
Totally. So I guess I'm saying that to say, hey, listeners, if you're further along than us, and you disagree in some way, then just stay tuned and wish us well as we learn, because that's all that this is.
Yeah, or post your gems of wisdom in a YouTube comment.
Totally. Or start your own YouTube
wisdom
channel.
Specifically, yeah.
No, they can't see me. I winked.
She winked for you guys.
Anyway, cool. This was fun.
Yeah.
I like this.
I liked it too. That felt good.
Yeah.
Okay.
This was really hilarious that the video didn't work.
Oh my gosh. You guys, I don't even know
so many
how
issues.
you're gonna, in some way, I'm gonna communicate to you how devastating the experience with the video camera was today.
Yeah.
So
It was a doozy.
Wild.
Yeah.
Anyways, love you.
We
You're
love
doing a
you,
wonderful
and we'll
job.
see you soon.
Bye.